Good morning. Good morning. Very good morning to everybody. Thanks for joining the information session on Brain Bee today. We will be presenting the basic information that is will be useful for you to participate in Brain Bee. We have Aditi Kona with us. She's going to be presenting the Brain Bee side of the information. I at this time I'm going to introduce you to Aditi. Aditi is a junior at North Oldham High School in Louisville, Kentucky. She has participated in Brain Bee for several years and was named the state champion in 2020. And she had an invitation to participate in the USA national competition. She's got a passion for neuroscience, and that's one of the um, kind of a basic qualification or basic tenet that we look for the kids who can do the Brain Bee. And she is a leadership member of two international organizations. She conducts breast cancer research, and she has presented her findings in numerous competitions. And because of that, she was named an ISEF finalist in 2020. It's not just Brian B. She also has been participating in Science Olympiad. She was the state winner in anatomy and physiology, USACO national semifinalist. She's got the Governor's Cup as a district and a regional winner. She's got numerous debating awards, and she also won the Kentucky's You Be the Chemist state champion.
Okay, great. Thank you for the introduction. So this is specific to Brain Bee. So we'll talk about a bit more about like the material, how to prepare, what the questions are like, age level distribution, and so on. So you can either participate in intermediate Brain Bee or senior Brain Bee, and this is one of the newer kind of contests for NSF. But for the intermediate Brain Bee, you'll have to participate first in regionals, and then from there you'll go to nationals based on like scoring and placement. However, for senior, if you just have to register and you'll automatically participate in the national competition because there isn't as much interest in senior right now. You can go ahead. So I think this is probably the most asked question, but the syllabus for the different Brain Bees. So starting off with the senior Brain Bee, it's a very comprehensive book. So it's very detailed and memorization focused. It's basically, if you click on the link, it's just chapters 1 to 18. So at the beginning, you'll talk about like kind of structures of Brain Bee. You'll talk about the brain. You'll learn about nerves, the nervous system, kind of the basic stuff. But then as you go on, you'll learn about diseases, you'll learn about drugs, how Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, all those kind of neurological diseases affect you. But any one of the questions can be from anywhere in that book. So we'll talk later about how you can kind of condense that information into stuff you can learn. But it's a very detailed book. Even if you look at it, it's like 60, 70 pages. And literally any question from that, any question can come from this book in general. But for the intermediate Brain Bee, it's not as content intensive. So for intermediate Brain Bee, you only have to learn the first 4 chapters plus the 18th chapter of the senior Brain Bee. So it's not as much information, but you also have to learn a couple extra pages, which you'll see in the book that was written by NSF. So it'll start you off with like a basic introduction to nervous system. You learn about how our nerves have evolved throughout time and a little bit about other animals. And then you'll be more focused into the basics of the nervous system. So you won't focus as much on like diseases or drugs or neurological symptoms. It's more like an overall review for the younger kids. But those are the primary study resources for Brain Bee competition. You can go ahead. So preparation material. I've always suggested using Crash Course, Bozeman Science, and Khan Academy videos. So those 3 resources, you can find them on YouTube, but they aren't specifically made for Brain Bee, but they're made for neuroscience in general. So you'll see some more information than you'll have to know, which is always nice to learn. But especially Khan Academy, they have a whole section for neuroscience. Crash Course goes through a lot of anatomy and physiology videos. So you'll see, like, they'll break down brain structures for you, or you can learn about how an action potential works. Or I think even Bozeman videos has some videos on neurological disorders. So those are great comprehensive resources. And for senior brain bee, you'll have to be able to identify, some questions might ask you to identify brain structures. So for those, there's this really great, it's like this model from brainfacts.org, but it's basically a 3D brain where you can look at different structures in the brain. So you can search up like temporal lobe, and it'll take you to what the temporal lobe looks like in a 3D view. So this is really good because I don't think NSF specifically requires this, but like the USA Brain Bee competition requires a wet lab portion where you have to like in person identify brain structures. So this is a really good model to kind of see where all the structures you are learning about are actually found in the brain. So you can kind of like look through the brain, where is the frontal lobe, the prefrontal cortex, the hippocampus, all that kind of stuff. And even in the NSF questions, you could see like an image of a structure, and you have to be able to identify what it is. So that's a really good resource. And then in addition to that earlier syllabus, that brain fact syllabus we were talking about, there is another book, which is, you can see linked, but this is actually, it's like the British version of the book almost. It's not as comprehensive or as detailed. It's also 18 chapters, but it's not as long, but it offers more of like a generalized review. So it'll still go over the same topics. You know, you'll start off talking about action potential and structures of the nervous system. You'll move on to drugs, dreaming, sleep states, and then you'll end with like neurological diseases, neuroethics, all the good stuff. But it's not as memorization or content heavy. It's more like giving you an overview of every chapter. So I'd recommend going, especially for senior brain bee, going over that brain facts book, and then for intermediate brain bee, going over the brain facts, like the condensed version that's found on the NSF website. And then if you have time, going over the British version, because it's just more of a review. You can go ahead. Okay, so, and as mentioned before, both the intermediate and senior brain bees just have a written round in terms of regional, so it's just 25 questions, 30 minutes to answer, and it's not open book. And from what I remember, like the questions can be anywhere from just, you know, what does the hippocampus do, to something like where they give you an image and you have to identify something. But all the questions will still come from the syllabus that we talked about. However, in nationals, there'll be a written and oral round, and I think that's still how it is this year. But just a quick reminder that if you're doing intermediate brain bee, that's only grades 6 to 8, whereas the senior brain bee is grades 9 to 11. And then this is, I think, similar to the other bees as well, but tiebreaker rules only apply if there's 5+ contestants. And if 2 people get the same score, you kind of just work backwards. So you start with the latest questions 21 to 25. Whoever got more right in those 5 questions will be named the winner, and they'll just keep going backwards if there's a tie. And I think if the question papers happen to be the exact same, then additional steps can be taken or joint awards can be awarded. And this was mentioned before, but yeah, NSF is conducting online workshops. So I'd really recommend doing these online workshops because you get it'll be very interactive. So you'll definitely see some competition style questions. We'll have questions from last year so that kids can work through them. We'll explain what kind of processes they have to, like what their thinking process should be. And we'll also give a really good review into all the chapters and everything they need to know. So, you know, they'll get to know some content as well as what the questions are like. We'll give some extra resources they can use. And you can just sign up for the workshops as mentioned before. And then one correction I'd like to make is that there is a coaching program, I think, that NSF started this year for Brain Bee. It is just 8 weeks. But for that one, again, we'll go over, we conducted for the first time in November, December, but we'll go over the content from start to finish. We have Quizlets as homework, and then we have like Kahoots that we gave out and so on. So all of that stuff would be great if you can sign up for like the coaching program.
Oh, thank you for that information. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one thing about the coaching program is it's definitely new this year, and we had quite a few kids sign up, but that's a really great resource. It's similar to the other ones because not only do you get the teaching material, so you'll have, a student that has one in BrainBee that's teaching 2-hour classes, but you also get like, I think we have like 80, 90 set Quizlets and like terms that students can go over for homework. We also have handouts with a bunch of like resources they can use. So the coaching programs are definitely helpful. And these online workshops are more of like a one-time thing where we'll go over like competition style questions. So that's a really great insight into what your student will be participating in. Yeah, I think this is just how to purchase the workshop. Okay, so how to study. So like I mentioned, both of these syllabuses for the intermediate and senior BrainBee are very content heavy. So even if you look at it, like, you can tell that. So the main rule is to just memorize as much as you can. So like, for example, like a question can be as detailed as, what does NMDA stand for? So it stands for N-methyl D-aspartate, and that's not something you'll just understand or memorize the first time you read it. So Quizlet and Anki are both stuff that resources that I've used where you can kind of input a word and then a definition. So for example, like you can input occipital lobe and then what does the occipital lobe do, or hippocampus, or definitions, anything that works for you. And that's really how I would practice memorization. So just go over those as many times as possible and you'll start to kind of memorize the content. But that's, something you see a lot with neuroscience. It's at the very beginning, it requires a lot of memorization, and then later on, it comes easier to you as you go. Yeah, go ahead. So we had a couple example questions, and this is more for intermediates. So what is the scientific term for being short-sighted, myopia, and then glial cells, another definition. And then, so I got a lot of questions last time about like how I would know like facts, like the very last question. So 13.5 million neurons, like how would someone know that? And the way, because different resources have different numbers or different facts sometimes, all of the questions are going to come straight from the syllabus listed on the NSF website. So if you're going to study anything, it should definitely be the NSF syllabus, and that's available free. But if you're doing intermediate, just focus on the intermediate syllabus, and if you have time, you can do the senior one as well. But for the senior syllabus, I would recommend going over all 18 chapters of that Brain Facts book. And then if you go to the next slide, yeah, these are the senior B questions, so definitely a bit more content heavy. So for example, like intermediate, they might learn about serotonin. So they might know that serotonin is a neurotransmitter, but they might not know exactly what it does. The senior brain is definitely going to be a bit more content heavy and detail oriented.
Yeah, now
there you go. Now we can see. Yep.
Okay, great. So yeah, so this is an example of some of the Quizlets that we came up with as homeworks for the coaching session. So so this is the intermediate one, but it's a very easy to tell. You can tell like senses. This one, I think this chapter is based on like human senses. So it went over like vision, hearing, touch, like how, like as soon as you see something, how is that transmitted into electrical signals for our brain to understand? Or when you touch something, how does your hand know to pull away? Like how does your brain interpret that? So this is like all like the terms you would need to know that NSF could even ask you. So like all facts you might need to know. But Quizlet was a really great tool that we use, and then I think in the coaching sessions we kind of just went over any questions that the students had. So if you can use them as flashcards and go over them, you can use them as a test, you can match them, and so on.
Can you do a test and maybe walk through a few questions if you don't mind?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, so this is like an example. So like it'll ask you like olfaction, what is olfaction? And then you write like that is, your ability to taste or smell or hear, whatever you think it is. And then some more questions, and then this has matching questions. So like you can match skin as the largest organ of your body, or you can match rods and cones as 2 types of photoreceptors. So it gives you questions that are NSF style questions. Like this is definitely something you might see on the test. And then multiple choice questions, which again, you just choose something. So how many muscles are in the tongue? It'd be 8 total, 4 intrinsic, 4 extrinsic. And this is straight from, like, it's worded just like how the Brain Facts book words it. So we created this homework, or like this resource, so that students could literally mimic competition style and they can do this on their own time. And if they submit their quiz, results are true and false. Once they submit it, they can check their answer.
Sorry to stop you. Just go through each question on your multiple choice and maybe do a trial run with the participants. If anybody wants to try and answer, get their answer and do that.
And if you can walk through how you created these questions a little bit, it'll also be helpful. If you can.
Yeah, that we'll do later. Okay, go for it.
I'll go for the multiple choice first. Yeah, so you know, when you look at olfaction, you should pretty much be able to tell that this is smell. And then this is something specific to intermediate. So in the beginning of the book, they kind of talk about how the nervous system has developed with other animals. So some snakes have a blink that can detect infrared light. So when you look at this, you should be able to tell oval window. That has to do with hearing. So that doesn't have much to do with vision or light. So I'd skip this. Red, green, and blue are like the colors for the photoreceptors. That doesn't make much sense. Somatosensory cortex. Hopefully by now, after like the class, kids have associated that with touch. So that doesn't make much sense. So sensory organs is the best answer. The 5 basic tastes. Again, this is like a very memorization sort of thing. This has to do with the muscles of the tongue, so that doesn't make much sense. Hyperopia has to do with like a eye disorder. Outer, middle, inner ear are just the divisions of the ear, so that means it's going to be A. And then nearsightedness. So this one is actually a pretty hard question. So if you go back to the Quizlet, we talked about we gave definitions for each one of these. So you should be able to tell eventually when you go through expert practicing, you should be able to tell that nearsightedness is myopia. And we also gave definitions for the rest of them. And then the ear is divided into 3 regions. So epidermis, dermis, and subcutaneous. That's defined earlier as the 3 layers of the skin. Tympanic membrane is associated with the ear, but it's actually just another name for the eardrum. This has to do with like signal conduction, and so that it'd be the last answer. I mean, this one's pretty easy to tell. I think these will be, if I'm not wrong, it will be multiple choice questions in the regional and national Bs. Correct?
Yeah, they can have multiple choice, true or false. So true or false also is good to go through.
Yeah, and then you can just check your answers and see how accurate you were. So I mean, these are all right. I can also show the handout that we gave after every class. I think that'll be helpful.
So, there's a question on the panel, which is there going to be an online oral round for the IBB in the nationals? And at the moment, for the nationals in both IBB and SBB, we will have oral rounds. That's the plan. If there's any change, it'll be announced prior to the contest.
So we'll have oral on both IBB and senior, but only in the nationals, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So here's an example of the reference material we gave out. This is senior B, but it went over all the terms. So this is, I think in the first week we covered the first 2 or 3 chapters. So chapter 1 is the brain basics, and we just kind of gave definitions for the most common terms you might need to know. And then so on for chapter 2, which is the senses and perception.
And these are all in the Brain Facts book, right?
Yes. Well, this is content that NSF created, but all of these like definitions are found in the Brain Facts book. Yeah.
Right.
So we kind of went through, and this will all be given to you during coaching sessions, if that's what you sign up for.
Yeah.
So it's a great way
coaching,
to
they can only sign up next year, so that's why I'm. So this is all from the Will it be possible for you to show how you created the Quizlet? How you did that? And I think that would be a easy thing that they can.
While you're bringing up, there's another question. Do you have Quizlets for the senior Brain B? And the answer is yes, but it is only available during the coaching session. So I don't think we have it available for the contest.
Right. So I think that's why she's demonstrating how you can create your own Quizlet.
Yeah, so you just, I mean, there's a title and you just put in your term. So for example, I could say, it gives you some examples. Alzheimer's disease. So they might even, Quizlet sometimes gives you definitions. So you can use these definitions and you can also add on specific to the BrainB book. So in the BrainB book, I remember them saying one of the most common types of dementia. So, this is specific to the Brain Facts book, and then this is the Quizlet given definition. And you can do that for as many terms as you'd like. So I'll do one more. So photoreceptors.
So is that actually you type in that, or it is actually getting it from the book that you already linked to? The answers.
I typed it in, which is good because then that way I can identify what I know and what I don't know. And the Brain Facts book has terms sometimes that are bolded, so all those sort of stuff you should pay extra attention to. And if you don't know it, I would recommend putting it in the Quizlet site. But then for definitions, rods and cones is a great definition. Or like I can add something onto that, like rods and cones in the retina.
So you're picking up. So go back to photoreceptors. So you are picking the actual definition that you know, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is the correct answer, right?
Yes.
And then it automatically generates the quiz with that answer as well as 3 other random choices. Is that how Quizlet works?
So I'll create the quiz in a second, but one more thing is you can also add images. So this is helpful, like if you're like adding like medial temporal lobe. So I have a definition that I can add, and then I can add an image to it, which I don't have one saved right now. But then once I add all the terms and the definitions that I want, I can just create the Quizlet, and it'll give me a link. I can share it with other people if I want. And then I have all my terms, so I can use them as flashcards, for example. I can go through every set. If I don't know it, I can star it and study it later again. Okay. Or another resource which we looked at earlier was the test. And this automatically generates a test for you. And you can use like multiple choice questions and mimic kind of what you'll see in the competition.
Got it. Okay, great. How much is this Quizlet?
It's free.
It's free.
Okay. So, Aditi, the question is, do we have any standard Quizlets that can be shared with the contestants or participants? I know we made them available to the coaching students during the coaching program. Will there be a small set that we can make it available during the workshops?
Yeah, the workshop will give some extra resources after you sign up for the workshop.
Yeah, that's what I responded to. Someone is interested in getting access to a Quizlet, and if we have a Quizlet that we can share during the workshop, I think that'll be great.
Yeah, so the workshop will have, we'll have competitions from last year. We'll have, so that for both intermediate and senior, we'll have Quizlets, like mock Quizlets, and then as well as some kind of training, like handouts that we'll give out. All of that will be from the workshop.
So we have our deep dive workshop schedule. I'll show you the schedule in a minute, and you can know that when it is.
Yeah, someone wants to know if there will be another coaching session for BrainB, and I think it'll be in the summer or later in the fall because the current one is just ending this month, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
it's
so
already
I think
on
the
its
BrainB
way.
one's 8 weeks, yeah.
So these are the two deep dive workshops that are scheduled. It's on the 13th of February and the 20th of February. 20th being for the senior BrainB, 13th on the intermediate BrainB. Like Aditi said, this will be a kind of a crash course. If you have already done the coaching, it will be a good time to review it. If you have not done this coaching this season, it will give you the crash course or walk you through all the material that we generally use in coaching. So if you have missed the coaching and you want to participate and prepare for this contest 2021, we recommend that you go and register for these. You can register it from your parent account. You go to parent, login, and then click on online workshop, and then register for workshop. You don't have to register for the contest to be eligible for the workshop, but your kid needs to be eligible in that grade. That's all. I think we pretty much covered everything on the information session. Anything else, Krishnan?
So there is a Meet the Pro session tomorrow. If you can bring up the registration, there's going to be 3 past champion Brainbee, winners that'll be sharing their experiences, and also Dr. Sunil Manjula is supposed to join to provide you as to why and how you can benefit from preparing and participating in the Brainbee. That'll be tomorrow. What time? I think it's noon tomorrow, right?
Yeah, it is at noon tomorrow. I'm once again, this is the link. You go to US activities, workshops, information sessions. You'll see the information session on the top and the Meet the Pro sessions on the bottom. And you can just click on this registration link and register. We have one upcoming for spelling too in a month.
So someone is asking if they sign up for coaching, can we request to buy the material for coaching? Unfortunately, we don't sell materials, but you can make sure that you attend the workshop so you get all the important things for the contest, and you will get a quick review there. For the IBB, do we have to read chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, 18? Can you confirm that, Aditi, for the intermediates?
Yeah, for intermediate, it's 1 to 4, and then chapter 18, as well as a couple extra pages written by NSF. It's just 3 or 4 extra pages.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else, if you want to ask Aditi directly questions, raise your hands. We'll give another couple of minutes and then we'll call it good for the day. Is that good, Anbu?
Yep, and like I said, the handouts are there with all the links. Please download the handouts. We are recording this session. We will be sending the recording to all the registrants by Monday evening. So you can go through it again. The links are there in the handouts too.
Okay. Thank you, Anbu. Thank you, Aditi.
Thank you, Aditi. Any final words, Aditi? Any, words for the contestants?
Not much. I'm just that NSF has been putting a lot more focus on Brainbee, especially with the coaching session. So I definitely recommend signing up for the workshop.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you for attending this session. And thank you, Krishnan, and thank you, Aditi. You guys all have a nice afternoon.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.